France.
Vive la Revolution!
Rejoice, everyone, we're back with another Seki Reacts to Fate, and who'da thunk we're ending Marie Antoinette with Sanson.
Apropos? Perhaps 'tis fitting. One could say. I mean, to be honest, the only other better servant to be slotted in this month would have been Chevalier d'Eon. Like, genuinely.
Yeah.
But we only had space for a few Frenchies. So, you're getting Charles-Henri Sanson.
I can only handle so many Frenchies in 1 year.
Ah, the French. Isn't it beautiful? So, Charles-Henri Sanson was born to Jean-Baptiste Sanson and Madeleine Transon in Paris, actually. Originally raised in a convent school in Rouen. Another student's father recognized his father as an executioner, and therefore he was forced to leave the school so that he did not ruin their reputation. After that, he was privately educated. So, Charles-Henri Sanson did not have the strongest home life with his father and mother. His father was actually paralyzed at a certain point in his life, and his paternal grandmother, Anne-Marthe Sanson, his father's mother, was an absolute, powerhouse in the family. And she essentially took Charles-Henri, had him leave his study of medicine and take on the job of executioner in order to guarantee the continued livelihood of their family, since his father could not continue his work as an executioner. He would eventually come to be known as the Monsieur de Paris, or the Gentleman of Paris, and would marry in 1765 to a woman who was his second wife, because he'd been married previously, but that one's really largely irrelevant here. So his second wife, Marie-Anne Juguet, who they had two sons who worked in the family business, but unfortunately one of his sons was his heir, was working in the family discipline, right? And Knick-Knack, you want to know how he died?
How'd he die?
He slipped off of a scaffold while displaying the severed head to the crowd and died. So his second son, Henri, became his successor. Sanson in 1757 would assist his uncle, who was the executioner of Reims at the time, with the execution of the attempted assassin of the king, Robert François d'Amiens. After this happened, his uncle quit his position, and Charles-Henri in 1778 officially received the blood-red coat that was the sign of being a master executioner from his father. He would go on to hold this position for 17 years and would be succeeded by his son in 1795 after showing signs of serious illness. And most of the executions were performed by him and his, at times, up to 6 assistants over the course of the 17 years he spent working. Fun fact about him, he was the first executioner, in fact, to use the guillotine. He was the one who led the inspection and testing of the prototype in the early 1790s.
How progressive.
I know. All of this testing was done at the Bicentre Hospital in Paris. Essentially, they started by decapitating straw bales, and when that worked, they moved on to live sheep, and then eventually human corpses, just to make sure that the method worked. So, Sanson would then announce to inspectors that the new device was a resounding success. Within a week, it had been approved for use, and in 1792, on the 25th of April, he began the era of the guillotine by executing Nicolas Jacques Pelletier for robbery and assault. The use of the guillotine transformed his status under the revolutionary ideology that was becoming prevalent, from an outcast due to his role as an executioner to a kind of fully perceived citizen with rights and civil duties. Over the course of his life, he performed almost 3,000 executions, including that of Louis XIV. No, Louis XVI. Louis XVI.
Oh, Louis.
XVI, and I read it XIV, and XIV is 14th, XVI is 16th. Sanson was not in particular a supporter of the monarchy. However, he did object initially to being the one to execute the king. Eventually, obviously, he would be persuaded into doing it, but he did not jump at this chance. One historian on his life wrote, no Monsieur de Paris had ever had the honor of executing a king, and Sanson claimed that he wanted precise instructions on how to do it, so that he was sure not to, mess up anything. You know what I mean? Unfortunately, under the kind of political and psychological pressures of revolutionary Paris at the time, he did have the duty to execute Louis XVI under the provisional government, and because he was the latest heir in a long line of a family of historical executioners, refusing this would have essentially shamed his family name, brought himself and his family into danger due to a perceived sort of siding with the monarchy rather than the revolutionaries. Unfortunately, not only did he have to execute the king, but he also had to execute waves of officials that were ousted year by year as power changed literally month by month. And it wasn't as if, as far as we know, he didn't really have any strong opinions about executing any of these people. So he was not doing this because he believed in the cause. He was doing this because he literally had to, because it was his family's job and it was his livelihood. And in a time of revolution, you do not want to be the person who is refusing to participate in said revolution. You know what I mean? Especially if you are one of the citizens.
Especially if you're literally the last person most people see before they get the iconic executions.
Yeah. So, granted, he did perform these executions, but there was likely a lot of psychological pressure.
This man is not a man that's a huge for the revolution guy.
Yeah, I mean, if you just look at his job titles, he went from being the royal executioner to the high executioner of the First French Republic. Obviously, there's not a huge political leaning there. Of all of his executions, that of Louis XVI was likely the most important and infamous, although history will remember Marie Antoinette's execution far more today than we do Louis XVI's. During the execution of Louis XVI, though, because of a fear of rescue efforts on behalf of the king, troops lined Paris as the carriage took its 2 hours to travel to the scaffold, and after Sanson cut his hair, Louis attempted to address the crowd, but was silenced with a drum roll, and then he was quickly beheaded, with his head being pulled out of the basket to be shown to the crowd. Unfortunately, there are 2 accounts of his death. One account says that the blade did not sever his neck, and the executioner had to press it down and cut through the last of the sinew, which would have been extremely painful, and some accounts do attest to the king uttering a terrible cry after the guillotine had come down, which would not technically have been possible if the guillotine had properly severed the entire neck. So, historical accounts, honestly, that would have been pretty horrifying to be the person who had to do that. To push down until the guillotine slid through. So I really hope that wasn't the case, because that would have been unfortunate for both Sanson and King Louis. In 1793, Sanson would execute another famous character in French history, Charlotte Corday.
Hey, we'll talk about her one day.
Yeah. After that, a man lifted her head from the basket like this and slapped it across the cheek in disrespect. And Sanson then disavowed all publications that said that this man was one of his assistants. He would claim that this man was a carpenter who had been hired to make repairs, and he did not approve of this action. It was highly inappropriate. It was essentially disrespecting the dead, and that's not something that an executioner would ever really do.
Sounds like Sanson wasn't part of this, the execution is supposed to be this public spectacle kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. In fact, because of this disrespect against a woman, this man actually ended up being imprisoned for 3 months.
Good.
As a result. Just a few months later, Charles Henri's son would be the person to execute Marie Antoinette. Sanson and his men would also execute a whole ton of revolutionaries from the period. Saint-Just, Cécile Renaud, Robespierre, Desmoulins, Danton, Herbert. Basically, a ton of the names high up in the revolution who, over the course of successive years of revolution, would fall out of favor with the new governments and then essentially be executed for treason.
There's at least one more name in there I think we'll be going over one day.
New Robespierre?
No.
Cécile Renaud?
Nope.
Desmoulins?
Yep.
I have not seen that on our list, but okay. So after the revolution, Sanson was actually pretty adamant that the guillotine be adopted as the standard form of execution. Sanson owned and maintained all of his own equipment, arguing that multiple executions were too demanding for the old methods, and that the old tools of his trade broke down relatively heavily, whilst the guillotine was relatively easily repairable and could be kept and used again and again. It also reduced the physical exertion that was likely to result in accidents, and he personally said that one of the reasons why the guillotine was a better option was because it was so quick and so painless in most cases that it did not leave the victims space to resort to acts of desperation that would lengthen and draw out the procedure in a way that pained both the executioner and the victims. Which, if you look at kind of the history of executions, if you look at England in like the 14 and 1500s, there are hundreds of accounts of people who went up for execution, and that was when you took a sword and you tried to chop off the head in one go and it does not succeed, and then that person is just flailing about in pain, half their head coming off, and the executioner just has to keep chopping until they die. So, unfortunately, after years of struggling with relatively ill health and kind of problems with his body, he would succumb and die in 1806 on the 4th of July. Which is a little funny for us.
It's funny for us. I can't find it too funny. It's 4th of July. The French helped us get our freedom.
Yeah. So, obviously, his younger son took over from him after his death. There is a memoir named The Memories of Sanson that has been published and attributed to Charles-Henri Sanson, but they were published in 1830, and they were written at least in part by the author Honoré de Balzac. And in 1847, the last member of the family, Henri Clément Sanson, died after money problems due to extreme gambling. So his grandson, Henri Clément, was the sixth and last executioner in the family, who worked as an assistant till the 1830s, held the official position as an executioner until 1847, and then his death ended a line of executioners from the Sanson family that had continued essentially uninterrupted for 159 years. Charles-Henri Sanson is remembered historically. In the 1840s, the Tussaud brothers gathered pieces of the original guillotines used during the Age of Terror to put in the Tussaud Wax Museum. Which is pretty interesting, I think. There are several fictionalizations of his life that have been published over the years, and he's been a character like in the side of a lot of stories because, you're looking at any story depicting Marie Antoinette or Charles XVI or Robespierre, the Age of Terror is gonna have him as a side character. Charles Dickens alludes to Charles-Henri Sanson in A Tale of Two Cities by comparing Sanson to the biblical Samson, which is pretty interesting. He's also appeared in a whole lot of films and television, manga, and is an NPC in Assassin's Creed Unity, which famously takes place during the French Revolution and the Age of Terror.
Sweet.
Sorry, I'm like blasting through this because my energy is gonna flag.
Well, if that's all you got here, you want to take a crack at the class if you don't remember from campaign still?
Have we met Sanson?
Yep.
Do we have Sanson?
Yep.
No, we don't.
Yeah, you do.
When?
Maybe it's in Realms inventory, but one of you guys do.
Might be in Realms inventory. Archer.
Well, no.
No. Caster?
Assassin.
That makes sense. I'm just stupid. This is an old design, isn't it?
Yep. One of the first in the game.
Okay. Do we have animation updates, or am I going to be looking at a very old? Oh, look, horses. Big black blade. I really wish I could read this. Because it's got something written on it. Époque la justice, I think. Which would be the age of justice. If I'm right, and that's what it says. Oh, there's the guillotine. Okay.
Do you want to see the sprites?
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. And the April Fool. Why is he so square? Yeah, that's an old sprite.
Yeah.
Oh, he has a glasses costume. All right. Tell me what you know about Charles-Henri Sanson.
So, Sanson here carries a lot of guilt with him. He takes his job as an executioner deadly seriously, but he did not want to, on a personal level, execute the king. But for him, he will execute whoever his blade is turned to. As a servant, he's less open to that than he was in life, though. In the event of dealing with another servant-master pair, he will under no circumstance kill the enemy master.
Mm-hmm.
For him, being an executioner is not a matter of being some warrior, but an evil he commits against other evils.
Mm-hmm.
The law is simply the easiest and most direct way for him to direct that belief, as opposed to dealing it out on a personal whim for himself.
Mm-hmm.
Despite being it's his son that's her killer, but despite being involved with her death, Sanson is often seen with Marie Antoinette and is noticeably very loyal to her. His guilt for his executions would kind of come to a head during the optional Salem chapter for FGO.
Well, okay, slight divergence here, but, like, sometimes I wonder. I mean, like, obviously, he was kind of in a position where he really had kind of three options in life. One would be, like, to give up being an executioner, lose his family's way of life, and attempt to take on a new career, right?
Mm-hmm.
At already a relatively old age. Alternatively, he could refuse to conduct executions, and maybe those less skilled or less willing to conduct sort of more humane executions might take up the practice, or he himself might be killed for presumably supporting the monarchy, or he could carry out the executions assigned to him as a job that he had to do, you know, while trying to maintain as much dignity for his victims as he was able. I mean, I'm no scholar on his life, but it seems to me like he chose the third option, which protected himself and his family and his livelihood, and I can't blame him for that.
Mm-mm.
But that's got to be a horrible position to be in when you think that, like, his family had been, like, essentially relatively loyal servants of the crown, supported by them for almost a century, you know? Also, that's a hard job to do psychologically. Like, it is hard to be the person who sort of, you know, pulls the trigger, for lack of a better metaphor. I mean, isn't that why because I know I don't remember what country it's in, but I know in at least one country today that still has the death penalty, they have two buttons and two people, and neither of them can see which button actually controls the trigger to...
So they don't know who was actually...
So that neither of them can actually know if they were the one to kill the person, and that way they can rationalize to themselves that they were not the person to kill them.
But yeah, you do something like what Sanson does, and there is no...
No, you are standing right there. You're the one who has to pick the head up to show the proof. You're the one who brings down the blade. You're the one who has to finish it if it doesn't work.
Yeah, so during that optional Salem chapter, he did try to keep things under control. But in the end, he ended up having to take the bullet for other people or another person, and would end up hung himself trying to keep things from going out of control with the executions.
Okay. I've got some relationships here. So, Maria. We are tied to one another in suffering. I am so very pleased by this. Marie, no, that's enough. No matter the connections we had before, they aren't relevant to us now, though I am happy to be here with you. Amadeus, good grief. I'm glad that I didn't live a life where I was dragged around by your degree of genius. Also, you're forbidden from making dirty jokes in front of everyone. The next time you do, I'll execute you on my own authority. As everyone knows, they have a relationship as fellow perverts. As rivals, we are rivals. Charlotte Corday. No, I'm glad to see that you're doing well, though even back then in that prison you stayed resolute until the end. That assistant did something truly unforgivable. It shouldn't be possible for him to be summoned here, so I'll apologize in his place. For the humiliation you suffered at your death, I'm truly sorry. I am sorry, but can we not be together? D'Eon said. Sanson wants to cry a little. Aww. Poor guy. Yeah, no, if you gave us him in Orleans, I don't have him, and I'm pretty sure Vorn doesn't either. Oh,
It probably says what it says in the...
oh. Épée de Justice, Sword of Justice, so. I read épée as epoch.
So Sanson uses his executioner's blade from pre-guillotine as his primary weapon. In life, he also had a side job as a physician, so he takes advantage of his knowledge there to provide medical support for his team as well.
Oh yeah, remember he was studying medicine before his grandmother forced him to take over the job as the family executioner.
He's also kind of a miserable assassin at stealth and doesn't have a lot of abilities to deal with things more directly. Instead, in combat, he uses his knowledge of the best places to strike someone to get the intended results. So incapacitate or kill, he'll be very efficient at it. And it's extra effective against those evil people he wants to kill.
Okay, so I see presence concealment. That's an assassin thing. He's really lacking on skills, so I know he's an early servant. So executioner, medicine, human anatomy research. We talked about the research he did about the guillotine and stuff, and that was definitely on the lines of human anatomy. So he's got a noble phantasm, La Mort Espoir.
So Sanson drags his enemy into a massive guillotine where they are to be executed. It acts as a largely mental attack on the enemy, but should the guillotine fall, they will die. The likelihood of it falling is changed by multiple factors, including their guilt, or if they met their end by execution and not in battle, they are especially susceptible to death.
So Ku's fine.
Ku's fine, but you know who's not fine?
Who?
Shiro.
Oh yeah, that boy is a ball of fucking guilt.
And he died by execution.
Oh yeah. Okay, so the character illustrator is the same person who does the illustrations for Asterios, Coulter, Caesar, Lancelot Saber, Minotauros, Qin Liangyu, and Theseus. Okay. Alright, so we've got a phantasm. Just one.
Mm-hmm.
静か
Oi.
罪を計る落ちろ
Oh, he's old looking.
Yeah.
He's very old looking.
静
I
か
mean, it doesn't look...
退け
It's basic as fuck.
It really is.
退け
He's really just
執行部
hitting things with that sword. That's really all he's doing.
We're doing animation updates again in this angle. Please. For the love of God, please.
Yeah, we need it.
さあ落ち着いて
We need it so bad.
この痛み
This is gonna be sad.
ラモールエスポ
There's a
ー
pretty badass depiction of that in one of the FGO movies, but also we can't show anime on the channel, so it's not
Yeah.
even worth pulling up.
Dang. Well, I wish it was more.
I'm sorry.
All right, we do have a baseball. Aw, that's cute. His baseball bat says probably "Paix de Justice."
Or it says like Bat of
de
Justice.
Yeah, that would be great. All right. Okay. All right. Well, it's popped. Oh, well, he's got some extra art. That makes up for some of it. Look at that. That's so cute. Oh, is this Bleach style?
It might be.
I think this is meant to look like Bleach. Like an Iran car. Okay. Alright. Okay, we have a fair amount of... I'm sure we've seen some of these, but I don't care. Alright. Salon de Marie. Which we've... Okay, now I know all the people in this image.
Yep, it's him, Mozart, and Marie Antoinette, I'm
Yep.
pretty sure.
It's a strange thing. Our positions and beliefs are so totally different, but we can sit here in one place and relax. A beauty whispers and two men agree. The three with completely different tastes and hobbies speak of a born idol, a woman who married the nation of France.
Some stuff in the gallery down there.
There is... I do not know one of the people in this image.
Oh.
Daeon is in here.
Oh.
And I can't see Henri. Yeah. I can't see Henri unless that's him. But
That's
then
him.
where's Daeon?
I don't know.
If that's Mozart, because it says it features Chevalier d'Eon.
If D'Eon's in there, it doesn't look anything like D'Eon normally does, so you're fine, I think.
Okay. All right. Huh, my loathsome life. There was a time when skills were required to be an executioner. The executioner needed skills to instantly decapitate the sinners painlessly out of respect for one's mind. We don't have to trouble ourselves over that anymore. Anyone can become an executioner without any pain. Cruel punishments also become obsolete. In other words, now a great deal of people can be executed in an efficient way. That's about it. I was foolish then, and I didn't realize it. When the aristocrats wanted to execute a young and innocent girl, I should have destroyed the guillotine there and then. I just didn't want anybody to suffer. Really making him out to be a tragic character here. Not that he isn't somewhat tragic, but, you know. Chocolate was popular in Paris back in the day as well, but it was also in high demand as a drink. This is full of nutrients because it has egg yolks in it. As a side note, it is said that Marie Antoinette took her bitter medicine by wrapping it in chocolate. I wonder what the egg yolks does for it. Seriously, do you need something to hold on to?
Oh, you're good.
And,
I'm good.
palpate?
I'm good.
Oh, yeah. Sasson's nutritious chocolate drink. Heroic Spirit traveling outfit. Oh, this is the art he was in for one of those 2 extra arts.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Okay. Oh, Anastasia's Noble Phantasm is in here? Oh.
Oh, there's V.
Yep. That's an odd pair. Alright. Angel's Breath. Let's do this. 1, 2. Oh, this is a banned one. We've already read it before. I assume it's this one, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, Astolfo's in the middle there, but then you have him to the right, I think.
Yeah, okay. Alright. Heroics. Oh, it's his festival wear. Okay, I was gonna say, it looks like Bleach, though. That's what had me fucked up. Yeah, it's Halloween Town. I mean, it looks good.
Mm-hmm.
Alright, Commentator of Flowers. Oh, there he is. Talking to Florence Nightingale, I think. Right in the middle.
Interesting pair.
Yeah. Super Doctor. I think that's him in the back.
Yeah, probably.
But this has a lot of people I don't know.
Yeah, and it's not translated yet, so we'll be back to it in the future when it is translated.
Yeah, okay, still. Alright, he's in here. I think that's him.
I know who else is in here. We'll be coming back to her, so.
I mean, we've seen almost everyone in here now.
Yeah.
So, last one. Day Off Master. Oh, this is voiced. It's got Charles Babbage.
Then we'll come back to it.
Okay. Alright. That's it.
Yep. Shortest one in a while.
My man needs an animation update.
I mean, we could have added him to the 3-hour Marie Antoinette, but we'd probably die.
No. No, enjoy your little short videos, people. Sometimes shortness, brevity is the spice
Sometimes
of life.
we shouldn't be uploading 4-hour Seki Reacts every week.
On that note, happy 4th of July, everyone.
That's right. Next
America!
week is 4th of July.
Fuck yeah!
Oh my god, that date came up in the video.
Yup.